Okay, so there's a thing I found out while making this video. I'd already been using one of these tools for months. I just didn't know it was a tool. Here's the setup. One feature, 3 issue trackers. The repo was frozen at a single commit and the same prompt went into every run. Beats, Backlog.md, and Claude Code's own task system. The result? Upfront. Nobody won. All 3 are mature and every one of them tracked the work fine. I'm not going to tell you which one to install. What I did find is that none of them dispatched the work. Beats will tell you which issues are ready and it even ships a worker agent in its plugin. But it won't start them in parallel for you. Claude decided what ran at the same time. Claude spawned every agent in all 3 runs. So a tracker gives you 2 things: structure for your issues and storage. Some of them also tell you what's ready to start. Storage is where the 3 of them actually differ. And some of these differences only start to matter after the first week. So stick around for all 3 runs. By the end, you'll know which one fits you. Quick note on the setup, then I'll get to the tools. One prompt pasted into all 3 runs. It doesn't name a tool anywhere, so each run had to read the repo and find the tracker on its own. One exception, and it matters. On the 3rd run, I told it to use the built-in tasks and ignore the other 2. By then, the repo had been through both of them, so it needed the hint. The feature is 11 labs transcription in the gray cut. There is an engine switch in settings. The API key goes into the keychain and is never shown again. You might recognize it. I threw the same thing at bmad-loop in the last video. And I didn't take any of the runs to completion. I needed those tokens for my actual job. So once I had a feel for how each tool works, I stopped. The point was to put them side by side. Shipping the feature was never the goal. Beats first. Okay, so Beats. Install is homebrew, and the first thing I noticed is what came with it. It pulls Dolt, which is a whole SQL database. That's a lot of machinery for an issue tracker. One thing I do differently from how I did it on the day. Install the Beats plugin for Claude Code right at the start. It lives in the same repo and I got to it late. Then bd init. It creates a .beats directory with the Dolt database inside. It writes an agent.md, and it installs a hook that runs bd prime when a session starts. Claude Code fires that again after compaction, so it reprimes then too. Beats is in your context whether you ask for it or not. The line it writes into agents.md is worth reading out loud. Do not use Markdown, to-dos, task lists, or any other tracking methods. Not in capitals. It's not asking. Then I pasted the prompt. Claude read the repo and worked out that Beats was configured. Then it filed an epic with about 17 issues under it. It started from the finished feature and worked backwards the way the prompt asked. Then it reread its own graph and caught edges it had missed. 6 issues could start at once. Beat calls those ready fronts, and 6 was the most that could go together. And this is the one thing Beats has that the other 2 don't. It's the only one that even tries to draw you the dependencies. What I got on screen wasn't much, though. BD graph on its own wanted an issue ID. The box view came out as a single column. There's also BD graph check, which finds cycles. Neither of the other 2 can do that. There's also an HTML export. I opened it and it's a lot of things wired together, except none of them are clickable. No errors, no nothing. The built-in is pretty crappy. The good viewers are all third-party. There's Beats UI, which runs straight from npx and gives you a proper board. Then 2 native Mac apps, Beatbox and Bedazzle. I only installed Bedazzle. From the screenshots, both apps look about equally good and both look better than anything Beats ships itself. And you don't need to memorize any of these commands. These tools write their own instructions into Claude.md or agents.md, so the agent already knows them. Though I'll admit, I spent a while poking at the CLI myself before that sank in. There's one thing worth mentioning. I let Claude pick the work of ready list, which is how it should go. But nothing stops you from claiming an issue that's blocked. The claim command checks status and assignee. It never checks whether the work is ready. That's from reading the source, not something I broke on camera. Execution felt slow, agent got fixed assignments, so they'd finish their list and stop instead of taking the next batch. and it sat waiting on me for the 11 labs key. But bit went first, and I was learning the workflow while recording. Every run was Opus 5 at medium effort, so the model wasn't the difference. I can't actually tell you it was slower because the 3 runs never lined up well enough to compare. Treat it as a feeling about my first run. Backlog.md next. Install is npm and that's it. A single binary, nothing else. After bits pulling in Dolt, it felt like nothing. It writes a block into Claude.md and agents.md, but it's short, about 130 words. Everything else the agent fetches when it needs it by running backlog instructions. Although that block also tells it to fetch the overview before every single request. That's another 350 words every time. Then the prompt. Claude created an umbrella task and about 15 items under it. It checked the dependency graph a few times. At one point it caught a task depending on itself and fixed that. Now viewing the work. This is the part Backlog.md is good at, and it's the best of the 3. Backlog board gives you a Kanban board in your terminal, and it's genuinely nice. It's well formatted and the colors are good. I could happily live on that alone. Then Backlog browser starts a local web UI on port 6420. That one's better than anything Beats has, including Beats UI. Backlog.md is missing exactly what Beats has. It won't draw you the graph. And there is no backlog ready, so nothing tells you what you can start. You read the blocked list and work out the rest yourself. There's a draft pull request adding a ready filter to the task list, but it hasn't landed. It won't catch a cycle either. My own cycle probe left a self-dependency sitting there. And the task can be marked done, whatever state its dependencies are in. About 20 minutes in, 7 tasks were finished. I launched the app. Settings opened before a project was loaded and the keychain field worked. The 11 Labs speaker was there too. The engine I picked wasn't reaching transcription yet. One thing I liked, and it had nothing to do with the tracker. An agent called the real 11 Labs API with my throwaway key. The live response didn't match the documentation. That was entirely its own initiative. And here's the argument for Backlog.md that survives everything else. Uninstall the tool and your tasks are still there. Plain Markdown in your repo, readable in 10 years with nothing installed. The problem starts when someone else works on the same repo. Task IDs are just numbers, handed out in order. 2 people on 2 branches both get task 16. There is a doctor command that spots the collision. It can only repair it once both branches have landed though. That tells you how they feel about the problem. I'm going on the docs for that one, by the way. I ran all 3 of these alone. Quick ask while we are halfway through. If you're running one of these, drop a comment. Tell me which one and whether you'd switch. It genuinely helps the video get seen. There's a Discord link in the description too if you want to argue about it properly. And subscribe if you want more comparisons like this. Third run, and this one needed no setup at all. Claude Code's own task system is just there. I started this one in plan mode, which I hadn't done for the other 2. That's an inconsistency on my part. Doesn't change anything here, since I'm not comparing the output. Then it created 16 tasks with real blocking edges between them, same as the other 2. The terminal shows 5 at a time. Ctrl-T toggles the list, but it won't expand it. I went looking for a way to see the rest and managed to freeze my terminal instead. I still don't know exactly what I pressed. Killed it, resumed the session, carried on. Then it started working. 3 agents at once and 5 more after that. It felt much faster than the other 2 runs and I watched my usage limits burn. Although I'd also given it a free hand on parallelism this time, which the other 2 never got. If that bothers you, one sentence fixes it. Tell it to run 2 agents at a time. Now the part I went digging for. These tasks live in .claude/task. 1 JSON file per task. Each one has a status and its blocking edges. There's an owner field too when something sets it. It's a real little database. It just doesn't live in your repo. And you can name the list so that sessions can share it. That's an environment variable. Claude Code task list ID. You set it when you launch Claude. You can't ask Claude to name it for you mid-session. An agent team gets a name too, but that one just comes from the session ID. But naming the list doesn't keep it around. I looked this up because I assumed it would. Shortly after the last task is marked complete, the session deletes every task file in that directory, named or not. What's left behind is a log file and a counter, so finishing your work is what deletes your task. The one exception is headless mode. Run Claude with -p and the files stay. Nobody has pinned down exactly why, but the cleanup seems to only fire from the interactive terminal. Which brings me to the thing I found out while making this video. I've been using this for months without registering that it was a system. At some point Claude stopped keeping a to-do list and started building task graphs. I just went along with it. And I'm fine with the cleanup. I've got gigabytes of old conversations sitting on the disk already. I don't need a pile of completed task files next to them. In my own work, I ship a feature and I forget about it. I've never gone back to look at a task I already closed. The context isn't really lost anyway. My planning sessions get committed to the repo, so those stay. The commit messages are long and detailed too, and Claude writes those, not me. A future agent could probably reconstruct most of the reasoning from them, and Claude leaves plenty of comments in the code. I've been fighting those lately, so the history is there. It's just not in a task tracker. Your job might be different, mine isn't, and the default suits me. So where do they actually differ? Two places. First, whether anything can stop you. Beats has gates. I read this part rather than running it, so treat it as docs and not a demo. A gate is a condition you hang on an issue. The condition doesn't have to be another issue. It can be a CI run or a human saying yes. There are timer and pull request types as well. While the gate is open, that issue drops out of the ready list. An agent asking for work never sees it. A CI gate clears only when the run finishes and passes. If it fails, the gate just stays shut. There is a flag that surfaces failed gates for attention, but you have to ask for it. That's the thing the other two can't do. Backlog.md and native tasks can only say this task waits for that task. Beats can say this task waits for something that isn't a task at all. Claude Code has hooks for this. Two of them fire on tasks, one when a task is created and one when it's completed. The completion hook can run whatever you want. You test suite, for example. If it exits with code 2, the task doesn't get marked down and the model gets told why. That one's from the docs as well. I didn't wire one up. Backlog.md has nothing here. There is a callback when a status changes. Read the source and it logs failures without blocking anything, and that isn't written down anywhere in the docs. Second, tokens. I counted across all 3 runs and then I threw the comparison away. Backlog.md got the longest run because I left it working while I moved on to the next one. So the totals just measure how long I let each one go. One number does survive though. Between 96 and 98% of every run was cache reads. You are paying to reread context, not to write code, and that held whichever tracker was underneath, so the tracker isn't what's eating your limits. Those are lead session numbers, by the way. The sub-agents aren't in them. What did differ was how many agents ran at once. 2 or 3 on the external tools, 5 on native. Part of that is me giving it more room on the 3rd run. But my guess is Claude was also just bolder with its own task system, which is the point of this video. Claude shows what ran in parallel and Claude dispatched the work. Every time. The tracker held the structure underneath. So pick on the storage. Native tasks leave you nothing. Backlog.md leaves plain Markdown in your repo, so Git handles it like any other file. Beats is different, and this one surprised me. The Dolt database doesn't travel with your normal commits. It goes to the same remote, but into its own namespace. Git keeps your branches in one place and your tags in another. Beats gets a 3rd spot next to them. So Git branch won't show it, and a normal clone won't pull it. You push it with bd dolt push separately from your code. There is also a JSON-L file in the .beats folder that looks like your data. It isn't. That one's just an export, so the graph can follow you to another machine. I didn't test that part. That's the actual decision. 2 more things before I wrap up. Taskmaster. Same idea as these two, and I skipped it because it hasn't shipped a release since March. Its creator has moved on to a paid successor called Hamster. It has the same problem as Backlog.md too. Everything lives in one tasks.json, so two people on two branches means a merge conflict in one file. They do have tags, one per branch, but you have to set that up yourself. And one for the Codex users. Codex has a plan list, and since May it has goals that survive between sessions. What it doesn't have is a task graph like these three. The one I'd point you at is OhMyPy, and the binary is called OMP. It's a terminal agent that talks to most providers. Its to-do tool has phases, so the display is nicer than a flat list. It's a session to-do list, though, not a dependency graph like the three in this video. One warning on that. Running OhMyPy against an Anthropic subscription isn't allowed. That's not me guessing. Anthropic's own legal page says logging in with a Pro or Max subscription is for their own apps, and third parties can't route requests through it. They've been enforcing that since April. I haven't heard of anyone getting banned, but I wouldn't wire my Claude subscription into it. Point it at OpenAI or Kimi instead. So, no winner, and I meant that. All three will hold your work, and Claude does the actual driving in every one of them. The thing to decide is what you want left over. Native tasks leave nothing behind, and that's the default. Backlog.md gives you plain Markdown in your repo, and it outlives the tool itself. With beats, the graph itself can travel to another machine. For me, native tasks won by doing nothing. I never installed them, and I barely thought about them. Although after digging through the internals for this video, I'll be paying them a lot more attention. Doing nothing also lines up perfectly with my cat's own methodology. Her task list is eat, sleep, demand attention, repeat. No dependencies anywhere, just a loop that never terminates. And I mentioned Taskmaster a couple of times today. There's a full video on it on the channel, from back when everyone was using it. It's had its day, but all three of these are built on the same ideas. Link on the screen. Subscribe if you want more comparisons like this one.